Hi guys, today we're going to keep going with our graphing systems of linear inequalities. I'm going to call this part 2, but we are going to do the same thing. We're going to take two inequalities, find those four important pieces: slope, y-intercept, type of line, and the direction of shading for both of these. And then from that, we're going to be able to graph both of them on the same graph. Now, it is important that you identify all four of those pieces prior to actually trying to graph it. So you can see in my first one here, let me tilt this a little bit so I can write on it. Graph and solve. Y is greater than or equal to 2/3 x plus 3, and y is greater than -4/3x minus 3. So I'm going to take these two and kind of separate them like we've been doing to make it easier for us to find those four pieces. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first one. On the first one, we're going to go through and identify our slope and our y-intercept. So my m value is 2/3. My b value is +3. Now the next two pieces that I need, I have to use the inequality to find. So with this kind of inequality, that means that I'm going to have a filled in or solid line. With that kind of inequality, I'm going to shade above. So there's all four pieces for this inequality. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing with the other one. So here are my m value and my b value. So m is -4/3. b is -3. If I look at these inequalities, oops, might help if I made the inequality that was there, huh? If that's my inequality, that means I'm going to have a dashed line, and I'm going to shade above. So now I'm going to take both pieces of information here, and I'm going to graph them on the same graph. Okay, so I'm going to do my x and y here, just so I know which way is up when I'm looking. And I'm going to start with graphing this. So +3. The slope is over 2 and up 3. Now, I'm going to work backwards because I know there are some more points over here. So I'm going to go down 2 and back 3. Now I know I need to make a filled in line. So there's my filled in and solid line. And I know on this one, I'm going to shade above. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to mark this line, and then I'm going to shade above. That way it's kind of color-coded when I go back to look, and I know which one is which. Now listen, make sure you're coloring it in fairly well, or if it does overlap, you're not going to be able to see the whole area that it does actually share without that. Okay, now I'm going to start this one with -3. And when I go to do the slope, it's -4, so down 4/3. Now I can only get 1 point going forward. So I'm going to have to go back. So I'm going to have to go up 4 and back 3. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now I know on this one, it's going to be a dash line. I'm going to get a blue here just to make it easier to see which one I'm doing. So this one, I'm going to shade above the line, which would be on this side. Now remember, color it in so it really looks like there's no gaps or overlaps. If you stop and just do kind of like this and don't really fill things in, you're not going to see the full area they share in common. So you can see this one's just pink and this one's just blue on mine, but you can see anything in here is in the overlapping area, and that's where your solutions are. Okay, let's try one more. This one, the notation looks a little different, so I want to make sure we see one like this. So on this one, I have graph and solve. Y is less than or equal to -3, and y is less than 5/3 x plus 2. So my first job is going to be to separate these. Now, some of you already probably don't like this one because there's no x. But you know what you can almost pretend if there's no x? That's probably because the x was 0 and it canceled out. So feel free if it's something like this and you want to add that in there. So when you go to identify things, it's easier for you, you feel free. So my slope is 0/1. My b value is -3. Move that over just a little bit. Now, this is my inequality, which means it's going to be a filled in line. And it's going to be shaded below. Draw my line here. Okay, now if I go over to the other one, here's my slope and my y-intercept. So my slope is 5/3. My b value is +2. So with that kind of inequality, it is a dashed line. And that kind of an inequality, it's going to be shaded below. So I've gotten all 4 pieces for this inequality and all 4 for this one. Okay, so hang on, I'm just going to turn it so I can graph here. So here's my x and y, and remember I start with my b value, so -3. Now if my slope is 0/1, that means I don't go up at all, but I go over 1. So it should look like this. Now that should make complete sense because if the slope is 0 and the slope tells how the height is changing with your line, the height never changes. It's a flat horizontal line because it never goes up or down. Okay, now we know this is a filled in line. And I know when I go to graph this, I'm going to shade below. So that's down here. Notice I did color code my inequality so I know which one goes with this. Okay, now I'm going to use this stuff from the other one. So I start at +2. My slope is 5/3, so I go up 5/3. So I can only do one going forward. So now I'm going to have to go back. So down 5/3. And I keep going. Now we said this line's going to be dashed. Oops, I guess it would help if I had a highlighter. So on this one, I am shading below. So below is going to be on this side. So I can see some area that's just pink or just blue, but this part that overlaps right here is where our solution is gonna be. Okay, we'll keep working on this.